2024 is almost over, and for me, it's been a great year of reading. It's been the second year where I have attempted to read more than what I've done in a very long time, and it's the second year where I've tried to read more deeply and more, um, just be more focused in general on carving out reading time for myself every day. And I've read some wonderful books, and I've discovered hundreds of more books that I would like to read next year and the year after and the year after. And I'm probably going to continue to discover more books along the way. So my to be read list will just continue to grow. But as the year is coming to an end, I wanted to share the top 5 books that I've read this year. I read 39 books in total, and I'm probably going to finish one or potentially 2 more over the next few days as I have some holiday time. But as it stands right now, these are my top 5 books. Number 2 to 5 could be subject to change, but there's no doubt about the number 1. So starting with number 5 is A View of Pale Hills by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is his debut novel, and this is a very nice American first edition, which I picked up from Canadian bookseller on Instagram, so thank you very much for that. When I read it, I actually read it in this paperback novel here, but this is a very, very strong debut novel. This is post-war Japan, and it is really about the psychological impact of generational trauma, and it has a very interesting storytelling and a peculiar plot twist and an unreliable narrator, which is a very interesting read. Number 4 is a book that I recently completed, and it is Percival Everett's James. You all know about this one. It's the most talked about book of 2024. Also the book that is most frequently on different type of best of 2024 releases lists. I read from LitHub that it's on 33 different lists of best books published in 2024, and the second most frequently quoted book has 22 mentions on lists. So this is probably the book of 2024, and I think it's worthy of that. I think it's a very engaging read, and it has a very, very low barrier for entry, and there's nothing wrong with that. Almost anyone can pick up this book. It is not difficult to read, but Everett is just doing a marvelous job at keeping you engaged and telling a great story here, basically. It's wonderful, and it has a very, maybe slightly rushed, but very satisfying ending, I have to say. So it's nice for a change that a new released book actually has an ending that takes it to the extent that Everett does here in James. So that's number 4. Number 3 is All the Pretty Horses from Cormac McCarthy, and I'm currently reading The Crossing, which is the second book in this Border trilogy, and that could very well end up on the list here as well. I have to say that the 2 novels are vastly different, but All the Pretty Horses is the most conventional one, probably the most conventional book that Cormac McCarthy ever wrote. And for that reason, it's also relatively low barrier to entry. It's not difficult to read, but it is still a McCarthy novel, so you will have long sentences and all of that I talked about in one of my other videos. Coming of age story, on the surface at least, a traditional Western, but there's a lot more stuff going on here than what meets the eye when you start getting into it. Just an incredible novel. That's number 3. Number 2 is another author that I discovered in 2024, or not discovered, because it's been on my to be read list for ages, but it was in 2024 that I actually started reading him, and that is Dostoevsky, and this is Crime and Punishment, which I have in this quite nice Eastern Press edition. And this is the one I read it in, and that is the Constance Garnett translation, which I found quite approachable, and I actually liked it a lot. I know Constance Garnett gets some flack these days, but I mean, it was her translation that is responsible for bringing Dostoevsky to a Western audience. And I think she's doing a pretty good job. I haven't read any other translation, so I can't really compare, but I mean, it made it to number 2 on my list. The psychological exploration of Raskolnikov in this novel is just out of the world. It's 50 years before 50 years before Freud formulated his theories, and Jung built on those theories to form an hypothesis of the collective unconscious and the shadow and all that good stuff. But I mean, Dostoevsky got there first. You just inhabit the world and the mind of Raskolnikov from beginning to end, and his ups and downs, his guilt, his shame, his anxiety, and his physical ailments, and everything that he's going through. It's just mind-blowing, really. It is slightly melodramatic. That seems to be the style of the time. It's certainly not as melodramatic as The Idiot, which I also read this year, and which also could have been on this list. But I mean, I think Crime and Punishment is the better work here. So that made it at number 2. And the absolute best book that I read in 2024, and I think the best book that I read ever, is Blood Meridian by Cormac McCarthy. This is in many ways a terrible book. It's filled with horrible people that do unspeakable actions, and there is a tremendous amount of violence to the extent that you become uncomfortably numb as you move along the book with all the violence. But it is also extremely beautifully written, and it has so many layers that you can read into this. It's Milton-esque. There is Goethe's Faust in here. There is, just a bunch of cultural and biblical and Gnostic and God knows what references throughout this novel. And then, of course, it has the absolute most terrifying character in all of literature, perhaps, Judge Holden. And I would say without Judge Holden, this would not be as great a book as it is, because he's really the character and sort of the instigator for the events that really take this book to a completely different level. So no doubt about that, this is the number 1 for me. So those were my 5 best reads of 2024 out of 39 books. Yeah, I look forward to reading a lot more in 2025. See you.